right, fixing NCOs. Welcome back to the Ones Ready podcast. I hit record while you were looking down. Nailed it again. So in the last episode, you, but I agreed in a lot of the areas, um, and we kind of went back and forth on, and it wasn't even really fixing the officer core. It was more of a kind of fixing the structure of the military and the way everybody kind of comes in.
It was
I wouldn't even
streamlining.
call it officer sessions.
No, we're streamlining the entire process so that there's a single entrance point with branches that already exist off of that, instead of having 8 million ways to get into the Air Force at different ranks and all these other things. One caveat to the last one is medical is different. So medical is not even in the real military. I don't think we should have a bunch of like military surgeons. They should all just be civilians because they're basically civilians anyway. I don't want to get off
That,
on a tangent, but I thought about that the other day.
but that is so true though, because there's zero rank or understanding. And that's not to say all, of course, but there's. I mean, how many times have you gone to the hospital or the clinic on base or something like that, and there's no kind of rank structure, at least with the folks that are hired directly, the direct hires.
Yeah.
You still have your medical technicians and stuff like that come in, go through basic training, go through tech school, and that is their job going through. That's different. But your OBGYNs, your doctors, your surgeons, your probably
Yeah,
anesthesiologists.
I don't care if my dentist is lieutenant colonel or not, and neither does my dentist. Like they don't care.
No, and definitely don't want to be called lieutenant colonel or colonel. They definitely don't. So we did that, and now we're talking about how to fix the NCO core. And so before we start with trying to fix the NCO core, we got to identify the problem. So what do you think one of the problems is?
Chiefs.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I take that.
Well, so it's a complicated problem, right? From where I sit, we've talked about a few of these things, but I think it's just NCOs need a different level of responsibility, and there needs to be more clear-cut responsibilities, right? And then when given those responsibilities, NCOs need to just do their job. The biggest problem that I saw on my way out the door is certain NCOs that were so they adopted that risk averse personality, where it's we can't do that. We can't do that. Stop saying you can't do something. If you're the subject matter expert or enthusiast and you think something needs to be done, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're an NCO. You can't get in that much trouble for making things better most of the time. So just do your job instead of being well, we have to ask this person, and then and then it goes up the chain, right? Then your mass sergeant is well, we have to ask somebody, and then all these people in the chain. It's a terrible thing. It's we can't ask the lieutenant colonel or the colonel every time we want to make a small change. Guys, this is ridiculous. Just catch them up later. They'll be happy that we didn't ask most of the time. And if they're unhappy about it, then your mass sergeant or chief should be there to take the heat rounds.
That is so true. I, I couldn't agree with that more. I think we've got to take more risks, and I don't mean just blatant disregard for everything that could go wrong, but I mean just mitigate risks where you can, and then make a decision and go with it, and own that decision. Don't if it doesn't work out, don't shift the blame on somebody else. You probably had a good reason for making that decision, and make the decision and go with it. And so how do we reinforce that is, whether it's the officers in charge or the chiefs or the senior NCOs, is they need to applaud people that do make decisions and do good. They, at the same time, they also need to applaud somebody who makes decisions, and although it fails, as long as it's not some, class A catastrophic, they make a decision, it failed. Hey, good job making a decision. Next time, let's do it this, in hindsight is always easier, always 2020, but maybe next time we'll go this direction, but at least you made a decision instead of you hesitated and you allowed things to just go awry, or there's a hesitation little cliche saying that we say, and I can't remember what it is, but not the hesitation kills, but it's something else. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like any decision is better than no decision, right? Like if you just what do you do? Well, you freeze up on the X. Like don't do that. Like just do something. I remember my first deployment. We were busting out of our location after a day of fun, and my comms were down and all this other stuff. And I remember this guy like trying to get my attention, and I wasn't sure what he was trying to tell me. And so like I was just like I had to make a decision real quick. I followed the truck that was in front of me. I think he was trying to get me to go the other way. He was trying to get me to go the other way. But I followed the other truck. They turned around and went back with the other element. And like 2 days later, when we linked back up, I was like, "Bro, were you trying to get me to like turn around and follow you?" He was like, "Yeah." He's like, "But like, you made a decision." He's like, "At least you moved. Like, you didn't
Hmm.
just like sit there. Like, I was trying to get you to do something. You did the opposite thing." He's like, "Oh well." Like, he went with them. Like, it's fine. Let's just get out of this general area that we're in, getting pounded. So, and that always stuck with me. Like some random Green Beret dude that was just like, "Yeah, but like you did something, and it all worked out." So there you go.
Well, that's stalling in the door. Number one man
Oh,
goes where he's supposed to do, but number two or number three, I mean, if they accidentally go the wrong way, which happens all the time,
yeah.
then you can't sit here and go, "What the hell, dude?" You know,
Oh,
you just flow the other way. And same with the dude that's like, uh, number one dude went right, number two dude went left. Which way do I go? Just go. You're sitting there in the door. You're going to take rounds. You're also going to leave your buddies who are in the room in a firefight on their own. You just got to get in there. You got to make a decision and go with it.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things in that. Like, right, like, you learn that there's only one person you can control, and that's you, right? And I think as you go through more training iterations, it's easier. But like, you got to get rid of that voice that like, in especially like kinetic situations, you can't play the blame game. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, none of that stuff matters. And so like, just I think our perspective might be different on a lot of these things because of the training that we've been through, and because it's just like you just got to make a decision and go, and because of the stakes of some of the situations that we've been in. Mostly you, not me, but it's I think it's easier like like once you see the way in one thing, you see the way in all things, right? And so
Yeah.
it's easier for us to be like, well, I'm not breaking anything or killing anybody. Like, just make a decision. Like, I think this is what we need to do. um, and like I had a chief one time too. It's the same thing. Like I made a decision while he was out of town, and this guy was like your prototypical like things must be done my way, like very very strong personality. But like as he grew, and like as him and I worked together longer, like he grew as a chief. And I remember he came back in town one day, and I was giving him the update, and he was like, so I would have handled this differently like 6 months ago. He's like, but like I would have gone a different direction when it comes to like that thing. But he's just like, but I wasn't here and you did your thing, and it's like no harm, no foul. But like this is where I would have gone. I'm like, okay, like I'm not upset about it. Like, we're not gonna agree on everything. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you want us to like turn that part of the ship around and go the other direction, like fine. And that's another thing is like you got to be willing to take the criticism too. If you make a decision and you get smacked around a little bit for it.
But I think that that's why a lot of people don't is, and it's maybe it's risk averse, or maybe they're just scared to get in trouble, or people can't take the feedback now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a real thing, man. But not everybody can take constructive criticism, and obviously it matters how it's delivered, right? If I'm going to be a prick about it, like, okay, well, yeah, of
That's
course,
all.
people don't
That's
want
only in the
feedback.
one's ready group chat.
Yeah, well, but that's different. I think we're at a different level,
Yeah.
and that just goes for the team room too. I think I'm in my current position. I'm thinking Big Blue Air Force, that kind of stuff. I'm not thinking team room because the team room tends to be very direct,
Yeah.
and you tend to build up some pretty calloused skin from that.
Yeah.
But with that said, I've seen plenty of dudes like I'm gonna call them out. Well, I'm not gonna call them out by name, but there have been plenty of dudes that could not take criticism, and they take that criticism or that feedback, and it crushes them for like they think about it for weeks, kind of thing. And you're like, dude, I've already forgotten about that conversation. like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on where you are in your career, right? Like, because I remember, when I was younger, if I'd make a mistake, And it wasn't even the criticism, right? Like it's like the team got has to pay for it, or like everybody's out on the drop zone looking for your lost equipment, and it happens to everybody. Like like at some point you're gonna inconvenience a whole group of people, and it's almost worse when like they're like, man, everybody has their day. You're like, man, could you just be upset with me, please? Could you tell me I'm a POS like right now? And they're like, nah, like, I mean, if it happens over and over again, like we're gonna be real upset with you.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like one thing, like you can't control everything, so like we're gonna spend our night out here doing this instead of go sleeping in our beds. It's just like so, like yeah, like certain things like that, especially when I was younger, which I think there is some goodness in it. Like you really bake that experience into your brain, and like the good and the bad, and you think about it a lot. But as you get older, it's just like okay, learn, move forward, let's go. Like, yeah, that was embarrassing, that sucked, but I'll deal with that some other time after I learn the lessons I'm supposed to be learning from this.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the reasons why people don't want to take risks, though, is because so going back to they don't like to take feedback, or they don't want to seem like they're the burden on team. So they're like, well, I'm not going to take the risk to make this decision because what if it's wrong? What if team sergeant or the commander or you know like comes and chews my ass? Well, like,
But
look, man, it ain't that big of a deal.
you know what? You can be the burden on your team today, or you can be the burden on your team for the rest of your career. Like that's like failure is necessary for growth. Like making mistakes is necessary. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not trying. And not trying is not really what we should be doing. Like we're supposed to be getting after the mission. So you need to move forward. And sometimes that's going to be uncomfortable. And sometimes you're going to fall on your face. But like, if you just play it safe your entire career, what did you really do?
Yeah, I remember showing up to England, and this is going to be random. People are going to be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" You probably even. But I remember showing up to England, and one of my NCO's desks, uh, he had a little thing taped on his thing, and it said, what essentially, what would you rather do? Arrive at the pearly gates all with this pristine body with no stories to tell, or would you rather skid into the pearly gates on a motorcycle, get off and disheveled hair, broken bones, and go, woo, what a ride,
Yep.
like that's kind of where I'm at. But that always stuck with me, and that's dude, that's over 20 years now. That whole kind of idea has stuck with me. Is I just, man, yeah, I could play it safe, sure, and maybe things will work out, and that's fine. Things if I play it safe, yeah, the long marathon consistency probably will work out, but that's just not me. I can't do that. I need excitement. Maybe that's not great, but like I need consistency in some things, right? I don't need, I don't need an emotional roller coaster in a relationship, or I don't need um, a volatile economy, right? I don't need that.
Right.
But man, if I just played it safe every time, like I wouldn't be the person on here talking to you.
No, no, for sure. And I think I harp on this kind of stuff a lot, and I'm going to try to explain. I have it. When you get a thought in your head, and you're like, "Man, I'm going to fumble my way through this explanation if I try to like say this out loud."
Live my life like that.
But like, when you become an NCO and your responsibility increases, like you need to learn how to be honest with yourself, and to really understand what you're afraid of and what you're trying to accomplish. Because I think a lot of this is if you're afraid of criticism, or you're afraid of people seeing you in a certain way, like if you're living in fear, you need to find a way to increase your own capability. And that's gonna release a lot of that fear from you, right? Like because like instead of having this imposter syndrome, or instead of trying to pretend to be someone all the time, just be that person. And I think that's what a lot of that fear comes from, is like you're not that person, or you didn't work out this morning. So like when you're telling your folks that they need to PT more, in the back of your brain, it's like, but could I really do that? Like, or you're asking your folks to do stuff that you've never done, or you couldn't do, and that's going to eat at you, and that drives fear within you. So like that fear of getting into trouble, or learning, or growing, I think a lot of that has to do with people being uncomfortable with their own capability, their own level of excellence or whatever. And either you got to come to terms with that and move forward, but like just being honest with everybody, I think is going to go a long way. Like you don't have to know everything. You're not the smartest person in the room all the time. You don't have all the answers, but what are your intentions? Are your intentions to make things better? Are your intentions like, are you willing to listen to the folks below you because they might have better ideas than you? Is your ego so fragile that you can't listen to them and like take their good ideas and make everything better and go to the commander, and when they're like, that's a great idea, be like, no, this is Airman so and so's idea. Like, don't, that's not me. Like, and risk not getting the best EPR of all time or whatever they're called now, because it wasn't your idea. Like, those are all the things that like kind of roll into when all that stuff goes wrong. That's when you get a scared person in this responsibility position that leads to poor outcomes or no outcomes.
And no outcomes being the worst.
Yeah, it's just like,
I mean,
what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. No, I got nothing to add to that, really.
Sorry, I didn't
That
realize
was
I was so
you
passionate about
articulated
that.
it well.
It took me like 5 minutes to like spit it out.
Yeah, it was good though. Like I said, I got nothing to add to it, so I'm at a loss. But
Well,
what's
sorry.
that?
I mean, there's the NCO core, right, that we're talking about, and then there's all the stuff surrounding it, which has an impact. Like your environment will dictate a lot of things about who you are and what you do. And so, like, if you're talking about the NCO core, you got to talk about senior NCOs, and you got to talk about airmen, you got to talk about officers, like, because this is a giant, it's all the same environment, and they all affect each other. And so, like, as an airman, when my NCO is pushing the boundaries, like, what should I do? As a senior NCO, what should I do? And as the officer that sees this crazy person trying to do these crazy things, like, what do I do? In these situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the E4 Mafia or the Airman Mafia, the ARM, the Airmen's Resistance Movement, they are, they're a lot of times they're young, not always, because we've got quite a few older folks coming in now. Older, right? I mean, they're like 24, 30, so they have a lot of life experience already. They've already made a lot of those young person kind of mistakes, and have matured a lot. So that, but on the other end of that, you also have folks like me coming in super young and still make mistakes because we don't have fully formed, frontal lobes making good decisions, right?
Right.
And in an age where everything is recorded, everybody wants to pick up their phone and start recording things.
Yep.
It, we make dumb decisions and we make mistakes, some of which are like your senior NCOs and your officers and your NCOs are looking at you going like, dude, what am I supposed to do with that? For example, if somebody was at the BX shoplifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got scar tissue for this right now, but like, and you're going, dude, what are you thinking? And it's literally just the adrenaline. It's the that's how they get their kicks, kind of thing. And I can't relate to that. I don't understand that. I can relate to, okay, I got to get a kick. I got to get some adrenaline. I got to get something going. Like I can absolutely relate to that.
Right.
But I don't do it by doing something like that. I do it by going and jumping out of a plane, or going to the range of shooting, or riding dirt bikes, or doing whatever, right? I don't do it by shoplifting and breaking the law. And if you're not tracking, the BX is like Fort Knox. Those folks have got cameras everywhere. Like, you got to know what you're getting into. So how many times has that person shoplifted before at other places, and now they needed to up the ante? So what I'm getting at is poor decisions. So that's why, you do get NCOs and senior NCOs just shaking their heads and going like, "What the you doing?" And that's senior NCOs and officer. And hey, all of them. Guess what? All of them make bad choices.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard about chiefs having inappropriate relationships with executives, and junior enlisted?
Far too often.
Happens a lot, right?
Yeah.
Happens a lot. And
They're just
you
trying to
know,
get that adrenaline rush. Come on, they just
yeah,
want to.
it's not great, is it?
But there's a trap there, right? Too. Like when you run into that situation, like you have some choices to make. Like you can deal with that person as an individual, or for the rest of your career, you can paint all E4s and below with this broad brush of criminals that can't be trusted. Like that need to be controlled. And I'm not saying like discipline isn't important and all these other things, but like we've all met those people that are like, if you're walking around and you're a senior airman, like you're just one of them, like you're a problem, and like get a haircut, get your hands out of your pockets, and that becomes like their mantra to like to quell the rising tide of crazy that comes from the junior enlisted.
Yeah, if it's a talked about it before, but it's a magical thing to see a senior airman, an NCO, a captain, a major be phenomenal at their job, be motivated, and just make things happen. And I know it's easier for a major to make things happen than it is for an A1C or an E3 or a senior airman to make things happen. But like, and it's hard to articulate what it is, but you know it when you see it, and it's something fantastic about it, and it's awesome to watch.
Is it though? Is it easier for them? You know what I mean? You like in the same
Is
way
it
that we
easier
tell
for
people.
majors?
We tell like teenagers, like, dude, enjoy being a teenager. Go make some mistakes because there's the consequences aren't that great. I think in a lot of ways in your career, like I think of some of the stuff I did like up through like E6, because you can kind of get away with a lot. And once you realize it, you can make decisions and do all kinds of things. And what are they going to do to you? Like there's only so much they can do to you as long as you're
Yeah.
not, actively like hurting somebody or breaking expensive equipment. And it's like, man, enjoy the time when you can just like, if someone comes and starts yelling at you, you can just be like, meh, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
just point at your stripes, be like, me stupid, me dumb. I just make decisions. I'm sorry. Whereas like, I get like the major has like, more authority and an oversight over like a larger, group and can make things happen. But, like they step out of line, and the lieutenant colonel and 06 over them, they have a lot more time to watch what they're doing than that mass sergeant does to watch all the E4s running around doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. If a major or a captain get a letter of reprimand,
Yeah,
like that's
that's
a
it.
that's a career killer. That's it. Whereas, an NCO or an airman, you could have fucking 10 of them, like big deal, like whatever. It's not a big deal.
And they tend to just disappear. I don't know where they go. They're like, oh, we put it into your PIF or whatever. I don't know.
I can tell you exactly where they go. They go into it if it need be. They go into a shredder.
Yeah.
And even when I've had a commander ask me to give somebody an LOR, and I'm like, I don't think they deserve it. We'll give them an LOR. Okay, here's the piece of paper. This is what I'm going to give them, and they never get it.
I mean, they can sign it. You can shred it in front of them or put it in your desk
Yeah,
and be like, we're
I'm
going to
going to
save
keep this
this.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just don't make me talk to the commander anymore. All right. For like a while. And they're like,
and
okay.
that's
Yeah.
hey, whatever. That's not following orders, but again, it goes back to that. Hey, doing what's right and doing what's correct. Um, Sometimes you got to make decisions, and you got to own it. Now, I got to be prepared to own that. That commander is now gone. So, like, whatever. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, but I think we all had that experience. Like I remember I missed a promotion test one time, right? And it's weird. Like
Oh,
sometimes the
yeah.
big blue Air Force, especially like weather, can be weird. And I was at the schoolhouse, and there was a lot of excuses I've made up in my head about why I missed promotion testing that day. But they wanted to give me paperwork, and I was so confused. I was like, no, I missed my opportunity for promotion. Like, and I remember the master sergeant like sat me down and was like, okay, like I'm giving you this LO whatever it was, and then like I signed it, and he just like kind of just threw it in his desk amongst the 8 million other pieces of paper he had in there. I know it's his like junk drawer. It's like, okay, well let's go back to the gym. Like, oh, okay, like it's just weird. Like sometimes it's just like he knows me and he knew the situation, but like other people are like, oh, like I don't know. It seemed weird to punish someone for missing.
Trent missed this WAPS testing.
Yeah,
Turd, you know? It's
Dude,
like,
I
oh,
was very
okay.
upset about it too, because I was like, the worst part was I was mid workout, and like when you're mid workout and it feels really good, and you got
Yeah.
that good sweat going on, and you're in your rhythm, and then I got the phone call, and we were like short instructors, and so like I totally, you know, missed that day of appointments, but yeah, they called me over, and I'm just like, could you just let me finish my workout first? Like, got it, I missed it. What are you gonna do about it? Like, it's fine.
So I have not missed a WAPS testing, but a guest that we had on, and who was also a pretty high up command chief, missed his senior. So he's a master sergeant, so a senior NCO, and Adam Veazey missed his, because I was out here at Nellis with him. He missed his testing for senior when we had it, right?
Yeah.
And that that was kind of a, obviously that was a big deal. I mean, he's going for senior, and he at the time, other than the chief, was the highest ranking enlisted dude at the weapons school. And the commander's like, well, do I allow him to test? Because if you miss your test, for the folks out there, if you miss your test, you're not just automatically afforded the opportunity to test again. That is kind of like a one-time deal. You miss it, like, hey, that's on you, which is I think is a bad system, but whatever.
Well,
That's the
it's
system
just
we have.
logistics. Yeah, the
Yeah,
commander has to go to bat for you to get a retest.
right. And that, so it's up to them whether they want to or not. And so, and that's what we had. We ended up having a kind of meeting with the commander. He just kind of like, hey, I've never had this happen before, because he was a pilot. He'd never had this issue. He'd never really had a lot of enlisted people. So he's like, I need y'all's advice on this. Like, what do I do, kind of thing. And everybody's like, yeah, dude, just let him test again. Why wouldn't you? You know? And luckily he is a really good officer. He's in now still, and he's a really good officer, great dude. And he was like, yep, that makes sense. Like, so he signed it. And then look, Adam made it. Adam Veazey made it very first time. I don't know if that was his first time testing, but he made it that time,
Yeah.
and then went on to be command chief of Second Air Force.
Yep.
So like, imagine if he had not, how far that would have set him back had he not, because seeing that in his records,
Oh, I know how far it sets
probably,
you back.
with that,
I know how far it sets you back.
how far?
Just kidding. I wasn't trying to promote it. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
How far does it set you back, Trent?
Just 1 year, really.
Well, yes, but timing, right? Because how much of promotions and assignments is timing.
That's true, because like if you knocked that year out of the park and your EPR on the top and like your awards and all that stuff are you're basically like gonna make it, and you miss your testing,
Mm-hmm.
you got to put in another year, and there's no guarantees that you're gonna win the awards and do all these other things, which like I get for all the people that are listening that are in the E4 mafia. They're like, all that stuff is stupid and you shouldn't have to do that for promotion. I'm talking about reality. I'm not talking about the way things should be right now. um but yeah, like you got to put in a full another year just like that to give yourself the best possible chance. So it can
Mm-hmm.
be tough.
Yeah, and then that plus missing assignments. If you're like, hey,
Oh,
I'll make it this year, and then I'll have a line number, and then I could fleet up into this position or this assignment. Like that door may close at that point because the timing is just not there.
well, and you gotta, and then there's the politics, right? Like if you're a master going for senior, like all the chiefs in your career field, and VZ's a TAC P, they're all going to be like, hey, how come he didn't even show up on the list? And it's like, oh, he missed his testing, and then that just plants, like not everybody is tracking the actual situation, and they're like, oh, like does he not want to make it? Like, should we take him off of our future plans list for command chief and all these other things? Like it especially at that level. Like luckily I was only testing for tech, so like no one cares. But when you're testing for senior, like that can have a lot of implications based on the cultural environment of the chiefs and everybody above you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then people are all butt hurt and all that kind of stuff. Um,
It's
Speaking of
weird.
being butt hurt,
Yeah.
complaining. The NCOs and the airmen complain so much, and you know what? I love it. I'm here for it, because if they stop complaining, that means they have already written you off. That means you are no longer seen as an advocate, no longer trustworthy, no longer credible, no longer somebody that they can come talk to and hope to have change enacted. And you want that. Complaining can get old, sure, like all the negativity. And hey, guess what? Probably most of these meme pages are actually ran by senior NCOs.
What?
Just saying. I mean, a lot. I mean, we already know one's been outed already,
I
right?
know that was crazy.
Nobody thought that it was going to be him.
No,
I
I
forget
mean
what his meme page is.
it's like another SF meme page or something. Is
Yeah,
that
I think
his?
so.
But it's super popular, and he was good at it, which like looking back kind of makes sense because he's like a kind of outside the box thinker, like a
He
kind of
is.
creative dude, and did the podcast up there, and it just like kind of a funny guy too, right? And so he's seen a lot, and so like his wealth of experience led him to making really great memes and being able to poke fun at stuff and maintain his own sanity.
Yeah, which is probably extremely important to him. If you guys aren't tracking who we're talking about Matt Parrish.
Way to go, Matt! You lied to us.
Strung us along for years. But yeah, complaining is important. Um, and when you hear people complain, whether it's airmen, NCOs, senior NCOs, and officers, it's the reason why is because they care. They're passionate about it. Some of it's probably sport bitching.
Yeah, yeah. It's your job as an NCO and an airman to do that. I think that's culturally what you're supposed to do, right? But there is a correct way to do it and an incorrect way to do it. Like especially like once you leave the E4 mafia, and especially when you become the senior NCO, there's people you complain to and people you don't. And like when you're talking to your airmen about things that are wrong, like you got to understand that you're seen as them and you should be working the solutions. When you're E5 E6 and you complain up to the E7 should be like, yeah, I understand, but just you know there's a time and a place when like in the team room when we can all get together and just let loose
This
a
is
little bit.
bullshit.
Yeah. But when it comes time to execution, right? Like it's like mission planning, right? Mission planning, everybody has a voice. When it comes to execution, do your job, do what I tell you to do. So like there's a time and a place for everything. But yeah, if people didn't care, like, and we've seen this where they just don't complain, they just show up, and what did Aaron call that thing? Uh, the compliance where you just do exactly what they tell you to do.
Hmm. Well, you're
Uh,
basically a robot at that point.
yeah, you just do the bare minimum. And is that what you want out of people? Like your people that aren't complaining are typically going to be your bare minimums, that are just treating it like a regular job.
Yeah,
So
I'm totally setting myself up. I can totally see it now. Freaking, I tell everybody they need to be complaining. My office is going to be filled with people now.
just
Just
hide under
hey,
your desk.
you wanted this, all
Yeah.
right? But I mean, like I said, complaining is important just because some of that is in complaining and talking it through could be the exact same thing, but there can be good ideas and good solutions brought about by that, and it forces you to listen, or it could force you to listen and enact some of those changes, or at least recognize that there's a problem. So many times that there are problems that are going on base or within the organization that I'm just not tracking because nobody's brought it up to my attention, and it's an easy fix for me, right? I can easily fix it by a phone call. Um, like there was a major that wasn't getting his housing allowance for better part of 6 months, and he had submitted trouble tickets. He had gone over there, and they were like, "Yeah." Every time they told him, "All right, it'll get fixed. It'll be fixed." And I'm not saying that the airmen weren't doing what they were supposed to. They were putting in, typing, putting in the changes, to try and fix it, and then hitting enter, and
Yep.
then then they got to wait till the next pay period to and hey, guess what? It didn't come through. And he finally came and let me know after 6 months. And all it took was a phone call from me to the other chief on Nellis. And they, didn't had a whole lot of oversight because holy cow, a major's not getting a member, it doesn't matter is he a major or not, somebody
Yeah.
is not getting their housing allowance in an economy like this, in a housing market like this for 6 months. This is a big deal.
Yep.
One phone call, I think the next pay period, he had gotten all that back pay, all of it,
Yep.
which was good for him.
Well, that's where your chiefs really like the really can make a difference, right? Because like other chiefs, and it's weird. Like the Air Force gets smaller and smaller as you move up in rank, and it's weird when people come to you with a problem, and you're like, yeah, I'll just call Bob. Bob will fix this. Like, why
Yeah.
is this really a hard problem to? And it's easy to forget that, like, from like your, the doers at the squadron where the rubber meets the road, like they don't see what you see, and it's easy to sit up in your ivory tower and be like, these are simple problems, but like not to them, and it means a lot. So. Those relationships are super important, and that's another job you have as an NCO or a senior NCO is to make those relationships, maintain those relationships, and make things as easy as possible for everybody that's actually working every day.
Well, I mean, it's not right. It's not right at all. But there is a difference when somebody calls, a senior airman so and so calls versus chief so and so calls. Like
Yeah.
it's not right. It's just the reality of it, and
Well,
that goes for anybody in any kind of company. Hey, it's the CEO calling, or the CFO calling, or whoever. Like people within that organization act a little bit different, or a little bit more respectable, or respectful, or hey, I'll get it done.
they move out. Yeah, it
Versus,
gets
yeah,
moved up on the priority list.
yeah,
Well, and some of that is your reputation as well, right? Like you could be an E5, E6 that knows a bunch of people. You know what I mean? Like, and if even if you've just been in these offices before, like figure out people's phone numbers and all these other things. Like, like at Hurlburt, I've talked about it. I had a finance dude that was like my senior airman, and he probably hated me because I got like the number to like his desk. Like I wouldn't go to the front desk at finance. Like I would just walk back into like the cubicle farm and go straight
oh,
to him. He's like, dude, you shouldn't be coming back here. But like
what,
if you deploy and people are having problems, I'm like, hey, I know the direct line and email for the senior airman in that office that actually gets stuff done for me. And so like, like he was probably upset, but like he was super cool. And like you just got to get that stuff done. So
yeah. Sometimes the processes they have set up are not ideal and not conducive to 24-hour operations, alert operations, blowouts. They're not conducive to it, because some of them are banking hours, and that's because, and I am not sticking up for their banking hours at all. So
here we
let's be
go.
clear about that. But they still have the same requirements we do when it comes to computer-based training and all the other things that are required for us to be worldwide deployable.
Yeah.
Again, I think I'm not sticking up for those hours though.
Yeah. I'm going to stick up for them a little bit. Like, when you're like an instructor and it's the same thing every day. And
Mm-hmm.
like students will be like, man, like this was a really tough course, and you're like, yeah, and I got another group of students coming in right behind you, and I'm going to run that flight line every 3 times a week with them too. And then once you guys are gone, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it with the next class. And like I look at these folks that have these banking hours, and I'm not like, it's not that I don't get frustrated if I show up and there's a sign on the door being like we're doing training,
Yeah.
because then I want to rip the door down and
Yep.
all that other stuff if I need something. But imagine doing the same thing every day. You're never done. You are never done with anything like that. It's every day there's another idiot that looks like me showing up that thinks that they have the most important problem in the world, because it is to me. And like you finish it, and what do you get for your troubles? You get another idiot at your desk doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's never ending. So like if you expect those people to answer the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, like you're just gonna kill people. And also they're sitting at that. I don't know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit
Yeah.
at the desk with those stupid lights over my head. That are, ugh.
Well, that's why we do what we do. But
Yeah,
they're undermanned too. Those folks that are working the banking hours are undermanned as well.
yeah,
They are, and it sucks for your security forces, your maintainers, and that kind of stuff that are working swings and mids and all kinds of hours, and they don't have the opportunity to just pop out during lunch and go see finance or something like that.
You know what though? Like as we say that, we say they're undermanned, especially like with the security forces and a few of these other ones. I think one of the problems with the NCO Core is maybe like there's a time and a place to like take a personal, investment in a person, as an individual, and to like take their side and to help them out. There's also a time when you need to put a boot in their butt, and if they don't get fixed, then you need to go to the commander. And I've been this person before, and be like, and say the hard things. Say like, this person needs to go.
Yeah.
Like they don't belong here. They are dragging everybody down, and I know that they're still fairly new, but like, if you're security forces and you can't ever be armed, like what are you doing?
Hmm.
Like it's not that they don't have enough people. It's that there's not enough people maintaining and meeting the standards. Like if you're in a finance or personnelist office and there's that person that just can't get their life together, like as an NCO, like you need to be beating down the door of the people above you and being like, this, like we can't do anything with this person. Like I'm spending way too much of my time. Like I tried, like here's how I tried to fix this. And if we're not fixing it, we need to find a way to like get them back out into the civilian world.
Yeah.
And so there's always that balance. It's like, yeah, we want to save all the talent we can, but if they're not making it, like it's not personal. Like you just got to go.
No, we definitely retain people more than we should. And the sad part about it is once they get to double digit years within the military, and then that's when we identify, like, somebody's at 15, 17 years and you're like, this person's got to go. Like, dude, maybe they do still have to go, but at the same time, have we given them feedback through the years, or have we just, kicked them down the road, made them someone else's problem, which is likely what we've done, because we have a habit of doing that, because it is easier to kick the can down the road or flick the booger on somebody else than actually address the problem. So you nailed it. We just have to be better at providing feedback, providing proper training, and being like, man, you're just not cutting it. We gotta do not retain for you. Sorry.
Do you know who provides great feedback and training?
Who?
18 Alpha Fitness, Coach Edgerton. And we're
I
talking
imagine
about,
he does it through the app, right?
yeah, and he's all over it. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing, and he's the person that will get back to you. He doesn't have banker's hours. He's always on that thing, looking at all your stuff and figuring it out. If you want that personalized attention, if you want to know what it takes to be ready to join any of these special operations pipelines, Coach Edge is your man over at 18 Alpha Fitness.
Yeah, and he's not specific to AFSPEC War or Air Force Special Warfare. He does Rangers, Green Beret, SEALs, Buds, the whole deal. So 18 Alpha 18afitness.com, promo code the number 1 ready. Get yourself a discount. I think it's 10% discount on the training plans, and they're all tailored to you depending on your current fitness level, the fitness level you need to be at, and how much time you have to get there. So definitely check them out. While you're at it, go to drinkhoist.com, promo code one's ready, to get yourself some hydration stuff and get your mind right there. They've got the ready to drinks. They've got the packets that are powder based. They come in a massive pack. You can take, easy to travel with, easy to take to the gym. Great tasting flavors. And you don't have to get them online if you don't want to. You can find them at the commissary, HEBs, Safeways, Kroger's.
Yeah, but if you want to support the podcast, get them
Yeah,
online, use the code. I know the code's not like life-changing amount of money, but it means something to us. So if you really like Jared, which I know you do, you should go online and use the code.
now we both know that I am not the favorite on the podcast.
I don't know. We did a numbers review the other day, and it seems like you're the favorite.
We did?
Oh, just that real. Never.
Oh, okay. I don't think we did that, but
Yeah,
okay.
I'm fairly certain you're the favorite.
Oh boy. Yeah. Let's see. We've already talked about complaining. We've already talked about people getting scared to be in trouble. One thing that I do need the NCO Core to stop doing, or just people in general, is stop being complacent. Yeah.
Yeah.
See.
I mean, it's. I want to be clear at this point in the podcast is that I'm not complaining about stuff that I've never done. It's not like Trent Segmiller went through his career and was never complacent, never complained the wrong way. Like, I'm trying to give you the benefit of all the mistakes I made so that you don't make all the same mistakes. But like complacency is the worst thing. Like, I would take someone that complains and works all day, every day. You know what I mean? Like that, and we've had those conversations. I don't know how many times we've had those conversations, like in the team room or in the staff meetings or whatever. It's like, dude, what is up with this dude? He's always whining. And like as a team sergeant or like as their supervisor, you're like, that's just who they are. Like, leave that person alone, because like they got a big mouth, but when it's time to go, like they go and they get a
Yeah.
lot of stuff done. Like, they're just a passionate person. They're from New York, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, that rubs people the wrong way. But then there's the person that's just like, that just doesn't care, ever. And we all have our ups and downs. But man, at a certain point, it's just like, you are just killing the vibe, with just not caring about anything.
Yeah. I'm just here to do my job, clock
Oh,
in, clock out, and collect the paycheck.
yeah.
Oh, do me a favor. Beat it.
Yeah.
I got,
I'm about to retire in 6 years.
well, that goes back to that retired on active duty kind of thing. And
Yeah.
people that are in know exactly who, or not who, but they all know somebody. They all know somebody who's retired on active duty. Or at least that perception is they're retired on active duty.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure people, like here's my own critiques of myself. I'm sure people within my organization, like, holy shit, he is always on his phone, as in like my cell phone. I always have it in my hand. I'm always carrying around. I pop in and out of meetings, or I don't show to meetings, or whatever. I flake on events, or I just don't show up. Uh, I won't say flake on events, because I don't really flake on events. If I miss something, if I tell somebody I'm going to be there, if I'm not there, there's a damn good reason I'm not there. But I'm sure folks think that, but in the reality is, I have so many people that text me and call me on my cell phone. That's why I give out my cell phone and not my office phone, because
Right.
like I'm almost always out wandering around. I try not to be behind the computer, because I hate being behind the computer. So I try not to be. So if you need to get a hold of me, hit my phone. I also try and text right back, because if I don't, it'll get buried and I may forget to actually get back with you. So I gotta, like, just the way I'm wired, I gotta do it immediately if I can, which kind of sucks for longevity, because then I get so distracted. But if not, if you want it done or it needs to get done, like, I got to do it now.
Yeah. No, I still I have a list at the end of every week of like all the people I need to text back, because like I'm the opposite. I'm like, I'm busy. Like, if it comes through on my phone, it's not real, But so I usually sit down and try to catch up on a whole bunch of texts, which is terrible, because then I get a whole bunch of texts in return, because they're decent humans, right? And they'll send it back, and I'm like, oh no, then I'm overwhelmed with the amount of text. Um, but yeah, I don't think I mean, you're always doing something. You're not retired on active duty. In fact, like, that's one of our biggest complaints from at least from me, is that you're always too busy with your actual job.
Yeah. I mean, it's what it is.
Yeah.
But going back to because I'm going to deflect this and take this off of me. One of the things that I do complain about now is that relates to complacency is meetings. I think that we had meetings because we have always had meetings, and that's what we feel like we should be doing, is having meetings. And it that's not to say that every meeting is that way, right? Because it's not, because there are ones that I truly get value out of, and
Yeah.
there's truly productive things that come out of it. But there are things that are established. That's the way we've always done it, or that's the way my predecessors did it, so I'm going to continue it. That, dude, we got to stop that. You got to stop it. And unfortunately, not everybody's at a position where they can go, hey, let's stop this.
Yeah. No, meetings are like the double-edged, sword, that are they can either be hyper positive or just the worst, like, and I think limiting the amount of meetings and the number of people that need to be in there. But like, also, I found a bunch of value early on in my career when someone would like grab me and be like, "Hey man, come to the staff meeting." Like, and it's kind of fun for everybody else, because like you get this like A1C or a senior airman in the staff meeting who's like sitting there, like, you get to see behind the scenes a little bit,
Yeah.
and things start to make sense because like if my supervisor's like, hey, like that thing you're complaining about, come with me, let me get you some perspective on what's going on. You walk into the meeting, people are like, what's he doing here? He's like, don't worry about it. And then like you see all the things that they're working on, you're like, oh, like this helps me understand a little bit about everything that this organization is trying to do, how much stuff is on their plate, and how they're not happy about all the stuff they have to do. And they would love to be able to solve my problem for me. They would love to, but there's a lot of other things that have to get done first. So there's a lot of value in that and being able to see the organization. But dude, like if you're like every other day we got to have a meeting or every day, and like and then those people that are like we need to bring in the head of every single department for every single meeting. It's like, but why? I don't
Yeah.
like. It's like you're trying to kill people and make them complacent by doing this.
No, that's a good point. I do. Bill Adams brought me into stuff early on,
Yep.
um, and not because I was complaining or I needed it. It was his own way of developing me and mentoring me. Um, Still one of the most phenomenal people and operators that has ever existed. But
Yep.
he did that, and that, man, now you're gonna. That's what I need to do. I need to do that where I'm at right now in some of the meetings. The problem is that some of the stuff that we do talk about can be sensitive and involve some of their peers or something like that. So you're like, okay, well, I can't bring you in for that.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about some of the big picture stuff and some of the issues or you know military constructions and building moves and personnel moves and what's the future of this airframe and that kind of stuff, like that's actually good for people to kind of get perspective on.
As a senior airman, you're like, just build the building. And you go to the meetings, and they're talking about colors of money and milcon versus, like temporary structures and who owns the land. And you figure out like real quick, like it's just like real life problems. It's like you think the military is like this special different organization outside of regular life. It's like, no, it's money,
Yeah,
it's land, who owns what. Half the time nobody knows. Like who owns that plot of land over there? It's like, I don't know. Like we got to ask somebody. Like, can we have it? Can we build stuff? Like personnel money and all this other stuff, O&M funds versus all the other funds.
yeah.
It's
And if you didn't palm for the
oh
money,
yeah, and the first time you learn about how that process works, it's like if you want to sleep well at night, let's talk about the palm process.
yeah, absolutely. It's a nightmare.
But
It's an
but it,
absolute nightmare.
but it's good because like I think it's easy as an airman to look up at everybody and be like, well, these people have all the power, rank, and authority to do whatever I think that they should be able to do, and then to peel the curtain back a little bit, and then you might still have some inputs like, well, they could still do this, and they will probably agree with you. They'll
Yeah,
probably be like, you know what, like we do have some time to do that, and you're right, but like when you see all the other stuff and how the wicket's required to get you what you want, it's like, man, that's wild.
it's a big animal.
And then they're like,
Big
have you ever
animal.
thought about commissioning? And you're like, not anymore. No, that looks awful.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think we hit complacency. Okay. And before we wrap up, I did want to talk about the adaptability thing. Did we ever talk about that? The
Nope.
man, there are a few things more difficult for me than when someone says this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way we do things in this MAGCOM or organization, and they're unwilling to at least entertain new ideas, and that drives me nuts. I can't stand that. Like the with the and I was thinking about this the other day when we were talking about when I always complain about senior NCOs don't need education or formal education, right? It shouldn't be a requirement. But I'm like, I have all these people running around with all these degrees. If these degrees don't make you more, flexible to new ideas, then they really are worthless. And that drives me crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's higher learning, right? Which means that you should be able to take on other ideas and other concepts, relatively easily. And whether you take them on and you piecemeal, like, okay, that piece is good, that piece is bad. Let me can that out. Um, then yeah, what's the point? But I
Yeah.
mean, being adaptable is also being resilient too. And I know resilient, which I don't like, not necessarily, it's not a toxic word or anything like that, but I think it's just overused now.
Yeah.
Um, and so people, and it can be hard to articulate what resilient means, but being adaptable is just being able to flex on the X. Like you're not rigid. You're not stuck in your ways. You just, okay, well, here's the situation. Here's where we want to go. Like, okay, oh, something happened. Something's changed. A variable has changed. Okay, well, let me, revector and go a different way now, or just move around that. It's adaptability is huge, and that's what we need out of folks.
I think a lot of that is, like a lot of that is ego. We see that through the pipeline where we break folks down and like their idea or their expectations of what should happen every day. Either they're just too tired to think about it or they get over it. And it's like, man, if you start out a situation, you say, this is what's going to happen, and you can't flex from there, like you're not gonna make it in our environment. And we force that over and over and over again to just, kind of live in the moment, so to speak. And it's just like, whatever happens, like we're going to figure it out. And that's on a larger scale, that I think that's kind of what we're talking about. But there's nothing worse than being that person in like those chiefs panels, right? And you're like the senior airman at NCOA or ALS or whatever it was. You raise your hand, you're like, how come we can't do this? They're like, well, we've never done it that way, and this is the way things are. It's like, that is the worst answer I've ever heard in my life. And all I heard was, I don't care about the things that are affecting you because I'm up here and you're down here. And that might not be the reality of that chief's situation or intent, but that's what it sounds like when you refuse to at least, uh, you know, entertain the idea of adaptability and new solutions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, like you said, that person may not actually think it, but that is how it was received.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing too. Like, and we know we talk about this too. The generational stuff. It's if every one of your students, if you're a teacher, and all your students get question number 8 on your test wrong, that is a teacher problem. That is not a student problem. Because you did not teach them properly or in the way that they received the information to allow 80% of the class to get that correct. And so like that adaptability with how you deal with people and how you deal with like you could go to an organization, right? You could have a team, right? Like as a combat controller, as a team sergeant or whatever, you could be a supervisor or have a team that works a certain way. And then they're like, hey, Peaches, you're going to the 2-2 now. And you show up there and you're like, this is how I did it, here. I'm going to do that here. And it doesn't work the same way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be like, you got to be able to take yourself aside and then like look at the situation and be like, okay, like, well, how do I get through to these guys? How do I embed these ideas into this culture to get the desired results? And that
Yep.
should be the focus, is the desired results and not, anything else.
Yeah, and it's good. You should share that information. Don't, you know, accept that maybe it doesn't get, taken on board, or that you don't necessarily enact that change. But like at the same time, the other folks have got to be willing to accept that, as much rivalry as we have with each of the units, like, oh, maybe they're actually doing something like that process or whatever is actually pretty good. Maybe we should take that on because that would actually help us up here.
Dude, how many times have you heard best practices and yet
Yeah,
nobody actually looks for
nobody
those
cares.
things or implements those things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's cool. Cool story. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. This is the 2-3, so we don't do
Yeah.
things like that here. It's just
The
like
2-3. This is how we do it.
the
We're
mighty.
picking on the two. We always pick on the 2-3. It's weird.
I mean, they get all a fair number of folks straight out of AST, right,
They do.
or
Yeah.
STTS. Well, I
Yeah.
think if we the 2-1, I always forget that they exist because there's other stuff going on out there. The 2-6, they're just like an easy. I'm not going to pick on those guys because, well,
Got to
reasons.
keep morale up.
We love you guys. I don't know. The 2-2 is easy to pick on because everybody wants to go to Washington, and then the 2-3's in Florida, so they're
Yeah.
just living that good life.
They
They're
are
out at
living a good
AJ's
life.
every night.
Yeah. They are out at iguanas.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, please, everybody, thanks for joining. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit Apple Podcast, leave us a review, rate us. Same with Spotify. It's just, stars. Can't tell us anything on that. And then head to onesready.com. Pick yourself up some merch. There's a tackle gear there, everything you need to prep for the pipeline. Like, okay, so you have the training plan from 18 Alpha Fitness. Now maybe you need some of the equipment. The discount is already built in. No need to go to a Tackleate's website. You can if you want and use a promo code, but really everything's already built into our site. And then while you're there, pick up some merch, like whatever. Easy. One-stop shop.
The cones and quitters. Gear's out now.
Yeah. So don't be a cone. Well, be a cone. Don't be a quitter.
Or whatever. You do you. Doesn't hurt me.
Doesn't hurt me. It's not breaking my heart.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We're out. Later.
Later.